Hello everyone, I am very glad that you're joining this story.
Subscribe, like, and comment. Enjoy the story, smile more often.
You ever pay for a whole Christmas you weren't even invited to? I have. For 10 straight years now, give or take a couple where I tried to scale back and got passive-aggressive texts from my mother about how the kids noticed something was missing this year. Every December, like goddamn clockwork, I swipe my card like I'm the last elf on Earth with a working credit limit. I book the flights. I reserve the hotel rooms because someone forgot to do it on time. I cover the catering because apparently we're all too old and tired to cook anymore. I buy the gifts for my niece and nephew because Santa's budget is tight this year. Mark, you understand. And yeah, I understand. I always have. They call me the dependable one. The brother who landed on his feet. The son who got the brains and the paycheck. I don't argue with that. I did all right. I got a good job. A decent place. 2 kids of my own from a marriage that ended politely but quietly broke me. I don't complain. Not out loud, anyway. But this year, something's been brewing in me. Something quiet, like rust spreading underneath paint. It started last December when I was sitting on the hotel balcony alone, watching my brother Kyle laugh about how he managed to score a free Christmas again. He said it like a joke, but his eyes didn't even flicker toward mine. Like it was just a fact of life, like gravity or interest rates. I was the free ride. The guy who pays for everything. The background ATM. I didn't say anything then. Just raised my glass and kept my face blank. That's what I do. I absorb. I carry. I hold it all in like it's my job. Because I was raised to be the strong one. You keep the peace. You don't cause scenes. You handle your shit and everyone else's if you can. And if you can't, you still pretend you can. It's a family tradition older than any tree or tinsel. My dad was the last one who actually got it. He never said much, but he saw me. When he died, 10 years back, the whole thing just shifted onto me without a word. One year he was organizing the hotel and buying steaks for the Christmas Eve dinner. The next year my mom just sent me the reservation form and said, "Thought you'd want to handle it this time, sweetheart." No discussion. No question. Just a passing of the torch that I never asked for. And I took it. Because that's what you do when you're Mark. You take it. So now it's mid-December again, and I'm sitting at my kitchen table surrounded by printouts, boarding passes, gift receipts, confirmation emails. I've got shipping schedules in one hand and a highlighter in the other. My kids are with their mom this weekend, so the house is dead quiet, just the sound of the dishwasher humming and the occasional wind outside knocking the wreath against the door. I should feel festive. I should feel proud. But instead, I feel like I'm building a party I'm not invited to. I glance at the pile of gifts I've already wrapped. Kyle's kids are getting a VR headset and a damn iPad. I bought Lena's boy a telescope he mentioned once in July. I don't even remember who got what anymore. I just buy, wrap, label, and hope it makes someone smile long enough to feel worth it. I don't do this for thanks anymore. I gave up on that around year 5. At first, I thought maybe someone would say, "Hey, Mark, thanks for carrying us." But that kind of gratitude doesn't exist in my family. What exists is expectation. You do it once and suddenly it's your job forever. You skip a year and you're selfish. You ask for help and you're bitter. You break the cycle and you're the villain. So I don't break it. I just keep going. Later that night, I'm over at Lena's place helping her set up a new router she bought off Facebook Marketplace. She says it was a steal, but the thing barely works and smells faintly like cigarette ash. Her youngest, Natalie, is poking around the living room looking bored, so I offer to help her set up YouTube on the family iPad. The thing is old, with a cracked screen and a sluggish touch response, but she beams when it loads. "Thanks, Uncle Mark," she says, and I feel that stupid soft spot kickin' again. That same little flicker of warmth that keeps me doing this crap year after year. While I'm syncing the app, a message preview pops up across the top of the screen. iMessage. Group chat. Holiday Parasite. I pause. My thumb hovers over the screen. Another message flashes up. Kyle. He thinks we don't notice, but come on. And then another. Lena. It's his whole identity at this point. Mr. Christmas. I freeze. The kid's still next to me, flipping through thumbnails, completely unaware that my heartbeat just dropped into my stomach. I scroll down, just a little. Not enough to fully open the chat, but enough to see a few more previews. Gene. Don't provoke him. He likes playing the hero. Let him. Kyle. He'll pay. He always does. And that's when it hits me. That feeling. Like the floor under me just gave out, and I'm suspended midair, no gravity, no footing. Just floating in the ugly realization that they've been laughing behind my back. The people I keep showing up for, year after year. The ones I bend over backwards to support. I set the iPad down gently. Natalie's still chirping about some video she wants to show me. I nod and mumble something, barely hearing my own voice. I stand up, walk to the bathroom, and lock the door behind me. I stare at my face in the mirror. I look tired. Older than I remember being. I feel stupid. Used. The kind of use that doesn't come from one betrayal, but 1,000 small ones that pile up like dirty snow. That night, I don't sleep. I sit up scrolling through my own emails, reading every confirmation, every itinerary. My finger hovers over the cancel button on the flight reservations. And for the first time in 10 years, I feel the spark of something I haven't felt in a long, long time. Anger. Cold, clean, and steady. And a decision forming in the back of my mind that changes everything. I didn't want to know more. I really didn't. Some things, once seen, start eating away at you slowly like termites under the surface of wood. You don't notice the damage until everything crumbles in your hands. But I couldn't help it. Curiosity wasn't even the right word for it. It was something colder, deeper, like I needed to know just how far the rot had spread. Back home that night, I couldn't get their words out of my head. He likes playing the hero. Let him. That one from my mother stuck with me like a splinter under the skin. My own mother. The same woman who told me I was her rock after Dad died, who said the family needs your strength now. Turns out, all this time, she was just watching me carry everything and rolling her eyes behind my back. I pulled out my laptop, opened up iCloud, and synced the iPad's messages with my account. It took less than a minute. That's all it took to open the door to a conversation I was never supposed to be part of. The group chat was named Holiday Parasite, and it had 7 members. 7 people I knew like the back of my hand. Or thought I did. Kyle, of course, was loudest in the chat. He always is. Every family has one, the guy who makes jokes when he doesn't have the guts to say what he really means. He said things like, "Let's see what Mark's buying us this year," followed by a string of laughing emojis and a gif of someone tossing money out the window. Another message, "Bet he gets Ellie a PS5. He's trying to buy her love after the divorce." Then there was Lena, piling on in her usual passive-aggressive way. "Mark means well," she wrote. "But it's not normal to be so extra. Makes the rest of us look bad." That one made me snort bitterly. As if I'm handing out gold bars just to shame them. As if the expensive gifts aren't a response to years of empty holidays and their refusal to ever chip in. And then I saw something from my cousin Greg, a guy I haven't even seen in 2 years, who saved my contact in his phone as the wallet. Just that. Not Mark. Not cousin. Just a damn object. That one got me. Because even if you suspect people think of you that way, seeing it written out in black and white has a way of gut-punching you. My mother didn't say much in the chat, but when she did, it cut the deepest. She typed, "He's always been like this. His money's how he controls things." Then, a second later, "Don't provoke him. Let him feel important. He needs it." That was when something snapped in me. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, internal break, like a tired rope finally giving out after years of tension. I closed the laptop and stared into nothing for a good 5 minutes. Just sat there in the dim light of the kitchen, wondering if I've been the biggest fool in the room this whole damn time. And here's the thing. I didn't feel rage. Not yet. That came later. What I felt first was shame. The kind of deep, pit of your stomach shame that makes your skin feel too tight. Because how could I have missed it? How could I not see the way they looked at me? I thought I was helping. I thought I was keeping things together. But to them, I was just some guy who wouldn't shut off the money faucet. What would you do if you found out the people you take care of every year secretly mock you behind your back? Would you confront them? Would you blow it all up and scream in their faces? Or would you just walk away? I opened my email and went to the folder marked Christmas 2024. Everything was there. Flight confirmations for 7 people. Hotel rooms blocked and paid for. A spreadsheet of gift receipts I had put together like some overworked assistant trying to impress a boss who never says thank you. It was pathetic, in retrospect. I hadn't been playing Santa Claus. I'd been playing sucker. One by one, I opened each email and clicked the cancel button. American Airlines, Hilton Hotels, Macy's, Best Buy, Amazon. All of it. Every single thing I had paid for and planned was gone within 20 minutes. The last one was the Christmas Eve dinner reservation at that overpriced steakhouse Mom loves. I stared at it a while. It was under my name, of course. They always let me book, then act surprised when I pick up the tab. I clicked cancel. Then I took a screenshot of the confirmation emails, the red canceled stamp on each one glowing like a stoplight in hell, and sent it to the main family group chat. Not the secret one. The regular one where we all send pictures of our dogs and pretend everything's okay. No text, just the screenshot. Then I powered off my phone. No explanation. No warning. No rage-filled manifesto. Just silence. Because after 10 years of being their unpaid travel agent, gift supplier, and emotional punching bag, I figured silence would be the loudest message I could send. The quiet in my house that night didn't feel like peace right away. It felt like the echo you hear after something shatters. I sat there at the kitchen table, surrounded by torn-up lists, empty delivery boxes, and crumpled receipts I no longer needed. The dining chair under me creaked every time I shifted my weight, but I stayed planted, gripping the edge of the table like I was bracing for a storm. I'd expected to feel guilt, maybe even a pang of regret. But what I felt, strangely enough, was relief, like I'd just dropped a backpack I didn't even realize I'd been carrying every damn day for a decade. I stared at the dim glow of my laptop screen, watching the last of the cancellation emails trickle in. Each one came with a confirmation number and a polite, automated message thanking me for my business, hoping to see me again. If only my family had half that courtesy. I took one final screenshot of the entire inbox, with that neat little row of red-labeled messages, and I sent it into the family group chat without a single word. And then I did something I haven't done in years. I turned my phone off. Not silent. Not do not disturb. I shut it down completely, battery and all. The kind of quiet that comes after that is eerie. Your brain keeps expecting vibrations that never arrive. You check your pocket like some ghost limb's been amputated, but the silence holds. I made a drink. Just one. Something strong and clean that didn't need sugar or garnish. I sat by the window with it and watched the snow fall outside. Steady, simple, indifferent. The world was going on just fine without me entertaining a bunch of ungrateful adults who treated me like an overpaid butler. I let the thought settle in my chest like a warm coal. But as much as I wanted to stay in that numb, distant place, my mind did what it always does. It wandered back to the roots of all this. Back to the first time I realized being helpful made people treat me better. I was 9, maybe 10, when my dad first made me feel valuable. We were at my uncle's cabin, and the pipes had frozen. Everyone else was complaining and drinking spiked cocoa, but I followed my dad out into the snow to check the water line. I held the flashlight while he cursed under his breath, knee-deep in the cold. I didn't do much, I just held the light, but when we got back inside, soaked and shivering, he clapped my shoulder and said, You're a solid man, Mark. A real helper. And, just like that, I felt seen. Useful. Needed. That moment became a blueprint. I carried it into my teenage years, then into adulthood, always thinking that being needed meant being loved. That doing the most would keep people around. That if I became indispensable, I'd never be forgotten or left behind. And maybe that's the saddest part, how long I lived inside that lie. My dad died 10 years ago on a Tuesday morning. Heart attack. No warning. I got the call from Mom while I was stuck in traffic, late for a meeting I can't even remember now. She didn't cry, just said, "You're the man of the family now. We'll need you." And I said, of course. No pause. No breath. Just like that, the weight was passed to me. And I took it. I wore it like armor, not knowing it was also a leash. I booked the hotel that first Christmas after he died. Took care of everyone's arrangements. I didn't think much of it at the time. I thought I was doing what needed to be done. I thought it was temporary. I thought they'd be grateful. But they weren't. Not really. Because when people expect something from you long enough, it stops being a favor and starts being a responsibility. A debt you owe them even when you never signed up for the loan. Sometime around 2 in the morning, I wandered back into the kitchen, the drink long gone, the glass still warm from my hand. I sat again and stared at the dead phone on the counter. It sat there like a loaded weapon. I wanted to pick it up. Wanted to hear their reactions, read their outrage, maybe find one damn person who said, "Hey, Mark, I'm sorry. We were wrong." But I knew better. They weren't going to apologize. They were going to be angry, embarrassed, blaming me for ruining Christmas, saying I was dramatic, selfish, maybe even cruel. They'd rewrite the whole story in their heads, turn me into the villain for finally putting my foot down. That's how people like them cope, with narrative, not truth. And still, I wanted to know. Not because I was unsure of my decision, but because part of me still, despite everything, wanted someone, anyone, to choose me over what I provided. To care about me, not my wallet. Around 3:30 in the morning, I finally turned the phone back on. It lit up like a slot machine. Vibrations, pings, chimes, flashes. 82 missed messages. 14 missed calls. And 1 voicemail. From my mother. The voicemail was just under 2 minutes long, but it felt like an hour's worth of tightly packed rage, shame, and that thin, wheedling edge of disappointment my mother had spent decades perfecting. She didn't start with "Hi" or "How are you?" or even ask if I was okay. She dove straight into the kind of tirade only a mother who's been caught can deliver, sharp, surgical, and practiced like a routine she's been waiting to pull out for years. "You humiliated me, Mark," was the first thing she said, her voice clipped and cold, like she was chewing every word before spitting it out. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" I had to explain to everyone why their plans were suddenly canceled. "Do you know how that made me look?" I had to tell your Aunt Ruth that we wouldn't be making the dinner reservation because apparently my son decided to make a statement. She said the word statement like it was poison. "I don't know what kind of childish tantrum this is," she went on, her voice rising with every sentence, "but you've gone too far this time. You embarrassed your family, Mark. You embarrassed me." I replayed the voicemail twice, not because I needed clarification, but because I wanted to make sure I didn't miss a single word of her venom. Not once did she say she was hurt. Not once did she ask if I was hurt. Not once did she acknowledge what I saw in that chat, what they'd said behind my back, what they'd turned me into. It wasn't about what they did, it was about how I reacted to it. The crime wasn't their betrayal. The crime was my refusal to keep playing along. The texts were no better. Kyle had sent half a dozen in a row, rapid fire, all in that fake casual tone he always used when he was trying to gaslight someone. "Bro, what's with the drama? You seriously canceled everything? This is real petty, man. Could've just talked to us like adults. You always gotta be the martyr. Guess you're making Christmas about you now, huh?" I didn't respond. What was there to say? Then came Lena, her messages quieter but sharper. "You really hurt Mom. You could have handled this differently. This wasn't the way to go, Mark. I don't know what you think you saw, but it wasn't meant like that. That last one really got under my skin. It wasn't meant like that. As if tone matters more than content. As if intention erases damage. As if mocking me behind my back is somehow excusable because they didn't expect me to see it. I wanted to scream at her through the screen. I wanted to remind her that I bought her son his first bike, paid her rent for 3 months when she lost her job, picked up her kids from school when she was too sick to get out of bed. I wanted to list every favor, every dollar, every sacrifice. But I knew none of that mattered now. Because people who see you as a utility never recognize when you finally unplug. Instead of answering any of them, I got in the car and drove across town. I didn't even realize where I was going until I was halfway there. The route was automatic, like muscle memory, and it didn't hit me until I pulled up outside Sarah's place. Sarah, my ex-wife, was the only person who ever saw my family for what they really were. She used to say it in the early days of our marriage, when we were still in that honeymoon phase of playing house and pretending the world could be reshaped with enough love and therapy. They only love you when you're useful, she'd say, never cruel, just matter of fact. They love your effort. They love your wallet. They love what you do, not who you are. I used to defend them. God, I defended them so hard. I'd say, they're just going through a lot, or they don't mean it like that, or it's complicated. You don't know them like I do. She did know, though. She saw it all from the outside. And eventually, it wore her down. Sarah answered the door in sweatpants and a hoodie, her hair pulled back and a mug of tea in her hand. She didn't look surprised to see me. Just tired. But not unkind. You look like hell, she said. Feel like it too, I replied. She didn't ask questions. She just stepped aside and let me in. We sat on her couch in silence for a while. The kids were already asleep in the spare room, the soft hum of a cartoon playing from a tablet under the door. I could hear the faint rattle of a ceiling vent kicking on. Finally, she said, they found out you saw it, huh? I nodded. They lose their minds? I nodded again. She sipped her tea, gave a half smile. This was coming, Mark. You just didn't want to see it. I looked at her then, really looked at her, and I realized how long it had been since someone said something to me without expecting anything in return. No manipulation. No pity. Just truth. I don't know what I thought they'd say, I admitted. You thought they'd be sorry, she said. But people like that don't apologize. They shift. They deflect. They blame you for making them uncomfortable. I leaned back and let her words settle in. And as bitter as they were, they felt like a warm blanket compared to the ice my family had wrapped around me. Later that night, after I thanked her and drove back home, I walked into the house to find Ben still awake. My son was sitting on the couch, scrolling his phone, eyebrows furrowed like he'd been trying to piece something together for hours. He looked up as I stepped in, eyes searching mine. Wait, he said slowly, his voice quiet. Did they really call you that? I didn't answer right away. Because I didn't know whether to say yes or explain just how long they'd been doing it without saying a word. I didn't expect to feel it like that, not the gut punch from a son's expression, not after everything I'd been through, not after reading text after text from my own family mocking me like I was some clueless puppet dancing for their amusement. I thought the worst part had already happened. I thought hearing my mother say I'd humiliated her would be the peak of it. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, hit harder than seeing the look on Ben's face as he asked me that one quiet, awful question. Did they really call you that? He didn't even look angry. That would have been easier to handle, honestly. I could have weathered his rage. I could have matched it. But the sadness on his face, the mix of disbelief and guilt, like maybe he should have protected me from something he didn't even know was happening, that expression cut through everything I thought I was holding together. Yeah, I said finally, voice low and flat, not trusting myself to say more without cracking. Yeah, they did. I watched the way his hands balled into fists on his lap, how his shoulders hunched forward like he was ashamed by proxy, like the burden of my humiliation was somehow now his to carry too. And for the first time, I realized how much he had been watching all these years, quietly picking up the patterns, the sacrifices, the one-sided generosity. I always thought I was shielding my kids from the worst of it, but they saw more than I gave them credit for. Kids always do. I sat down beside him on the couch, elbows on my knees, hands hanging loosely, trying to find the words to explain everything I'd kept buried for so long. You know how I always said Christmas was about family? I started, not looking at him, just staring down at the floor like the truth might be hiding in the carpet fibers. What I didn't tell you is that I've been footing the bill for the circus since your grandfather died. Flights, hotels, gifts, dinners. Every year. Every single thing. Ben didn't interrupt. He just listened, eyes on me like he was studying a map he'd never seen before, one that explained why every Christmas felt a little heavier on my shoulders than the last. And I didn't mind it at first, I continued, voice thick now, throat tightening with the weight of years I'd never put into words. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought maybe it would bring everyone closer. Maybe it'd help us hold on to something after Dad passed. But it turned into this thing, this expectation. Like I stopped being part of the family and just became the guy who makes everything happen. And the worst part? They don't even see it. They just take. And when they think I'm not looking, they laugh about it. Ellie had come in during the middle of that, standing in the hallway, holding her sketch pad with her thumb hooked over the edge like she was using it as armor. She didn't say anything at first. She just stared at me, eyes wide and blinking hard, like she was trying to keep herself from crying. When I finally looked up, she was already wiping her cheeks. "You don't have to do that anymore," she said. "You don't have to do any of that." And something about hearing that from her, a 13-year-old who already understood more about emotional weight than half the adults in my family, made my chest break open like a cracked dam. I didn't cry. Not then. But I felt something shift inside, like I could breathe again. Like I didn't have to carry this performance anymore. Like maybe, just maybe, I could have a holiday without debt, emotional or financial. Ben stood up and wrapped his arms around me without saying a word. No lecture. No pity. Just this quiet, solid hug that said everything his voice couldn't. And I hugged him back like it was the first honest moment we'd had in years. Because maybe it was. We spent the next hour in the living room, sprawled on the couch with Ellie curled against my side, Ben flipping through old holiday photos on his phone. For once, we didn't talk about what to buy, where to go, who needed what. We just sat there, the three of us, building the skeleton of a new kind of Christmas, one that didn't involve me going broke or pretending I wasn't exhausted. "Let's do our own thing this year," I said eventually, looking between them. No big gifts. No hotel. No matching pajamas for the family photo. Just us. Movies, junk food, maybe a frozen pizza and some bad ornaments we make ourselves. Ellie nodded so fast her ponytail bounced. "Can I make the decorations?" "Hell yes, you can," I said, and for the first time in weeks, I actually smiled without forcing it. Ben grinned too. "I'll handle the soundtrack. But I'm putting Die Hard on the list." "As you should," I replied. "It's a damn Christmas classic." And that was the plan. Nothing extravagant. Nothing perfect. Just real. I could live with that. But peace never lasts long in my world. Just as I was walking to the kitchen to grab the popcorn Ellie had asked for, I heard a knock on the door. Not a text. Not a call. A knock. Ben and Ellie both turned to look at me, silent and wide-eyed, and something in my gut twisted before I even reached for the handle. Through the frosted glass of the front window, I saw her, Lena, standing in the snow, wrapped in her coat, cheeks red from the wind. Her kids stood next to her, shivering, bags in their hands. And I knew before I even opened the door. She didn't come to say sorry. She came because she needed something. There's something deeply familiar about the sound of her voice, tight around the edges, like it's dressed up as concern, but already trying to wrap its hands around my guilt before she even steps fully through the door. Lena doesn't say hi. She doesn't ask if I'm okay or if the kids are awake. She just stands there, her boots soaked with snow, her hair damp and frizzed around the hood of her coat, and gives me that look, half pleading, half accusatory, like I've done something to her, not the other way around. But before I can even process it, her kids rush past her legs like a flood breaking through a dam. They barrel into the house with the wild-eyed energy only children can summon after hours in a car and weeks of holiday buildup. Natalie throws her arms around my waist and squeals my name like she's just found water in a desert. And just like that, my defenses waver for a split second. Because I've always had a soft spot for the kids. Always. They didn't choose any of this. They didn't make the decisions. They didn't ask to be dragged into a web of manipulation, expectations, and family theater. And when a child hugs you like you're their whole world, it's hard not to feel that old familiar tug somewhere behind your ribs. It's hard not to crack. But I don't crack this time. Shoes off, kids, I say, gentle but firm. And keep your voices down, Ellie's already asleep. They nod and scatter like marbles, pulling off boots and flinging coats in the direction of the coat rack. I make a mental note to straighten it all later, because I need something to do with my hands to keep from screaming. Lena steps inside like she owns the space. She doesn't even ask. She just walks in, looks around like she's measuring the warmth of my living room against the cold of her car, and then says the words I've been waiting to hear but dreaded all the same. You ruined Christmas for them, Mark. It takes everything in me not to laugh in her face. I just stare at her, one eyebrow raised, lips tight, because I know if I open my mouth right now, something unkind will come out, and as much as I want to hurt her the way they've all hurt me, I don't want to do it in front of her kids. I ruined it? I ask, calm like a blade. I ruined the Christmas I was paying for? That one. She crosses her arms and looks away for a second, eyes darting toward the kitchen like she's debating whether to sit down or keep the high ground by standing. We didn't mean what we said, she mutters finally. It was just jokes. Right, I say, nodding slowly. Jokes you made in a private group chat you named after me. Real hilarious stuff. She doesn't reply to that. Just bites her lip and sighs, the way she always does when she's about to pivot from confrontation to confession. We're broke, Mark. The words hang there for a beat longer than necessary, like she expects them to knock me off my feet. I don't move. Kyle lost his job back in August, she goes on. Hasn't told anyone. Not even Mom, until a couple weeks ago. And she's drowning in debt. Maxed out 3 cards. Took out a personal loan to cover some of the holiday stuff. We were all banking on you, okay? That's just how it was gonna work. My stomach churns, not from shock, but from confirmation. Because I already knew it. I didn't know the details, but I knew the weight. I've felt it for years, every time the holidays rolled around. Every time someone forgot their wallet or meant to Venmo me or said, "We'll pay you back next week," and never brought it up again. I've felt the pressure of unspoken reliance like a rope tightening around my chest every year since Dad died. You were banking on me, I repeat, quieter now. So the plan was what, mock me behind my back, call me a parasite, and then wait for the checks to clear? She flinches like I slapped her. Which I didn't. But maybe someone finally needed to say it. We didn't think you'd see that chat, she says, and that's the part that cracks me open in a new, colder way. Because that's what it always comes down to with people like them. Not what they did, not whether it was wrong, just whether they got caught doing it. You think that makes it better? I ask, and now my voice rises, just a little. You think the problem is that I saw it? Not that you meant it. No, she says, her voice small now. I mean, I don't know. We were stressed. We were scared. You've always had more than us, Mark. I turn away then, because I can't look at her and not remember all the times I said yes when I wanted to say no. All the times I picked up the check, covered the cost, bit my tongue. I can't look at her and not think about how many birthdays I missed to stay at work, how many holidays I spent organizing things for people who couldn't even be bothered to call me unless they needed something. You think I've had it easy? I ask, not yelling, but every word sharp. You think because I make a decent salary now, all of this is nothing to me? I got divorced trying to keep everyone else afloat. I missed weekends with my kids to run errands for people who didn't even say thank you. And every damn Christmas, I showed up, paid up, and smiled like it didn't cost me anything. But it did, Lena. It did. She doesn't answer. She just stands there, defeated, eyes on the floor, hands knotted in her sleeves. So what now? She asks finally, her voice barely above a whisper. You just gonna let us fall? And that's when I realized the difference between her and me. Because all this time, I thought we were carrying the same weight, but I was carrying them. And they were just standing on my back. It wasn't anger anymore. That had burned itself out somewhere between the voicemail from my mother and the knock on my door. What I felt standing there in my own living room, with Lena staring at me like I held the lever between salvation and abandonment, wasn't rage or resentment or even sadness. It was something quieter and heavier, something like clarity. For years I'd carried their weight like it was mine, shouldered every unspoken expectation and every sidelong glance when I offered to pay the check. I was the dependable one, the responsible one, the big brother who always handled it. I never asked for thanks. I never even really asked for acknowledgement. I just did what I thought a man was supposed to do when his family fell apart after the anchor was gone. My father passed, and the hole he left became my responsibility to fill. I didn't volunteer. I was drafted. And maybe for a while I believed it gave me purpose. Maybe I convinced myself that being the one who held things together was the same as being loved. That if I kept showing up, kept sacrificing, kept giving, eventually someone would look me in the eye and say, "You matter." But it never came. And now, staring at my sister, broke, ashamed, and still asking for more, I realized it never would. You didn't come here because you wanted to see me, I said finally, voice steady, the heat long gone. You came because I was your only option. Lena's mouth opened like she wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Maybe because she knew it was true. Maybe because deep down, even she was tired of the performance. I'm not mad, I continued, surprising even myself. Not anymore. I'm just done. I'm done pretending that being useful is the same thing as being wanted. I'm done mistaking obligation for love. And I'm done paying for people who don't even like me. She flinched at that, just slightly. A small muscle in her jaw twitched, and her eyes darted away, the way someone looks when they've been caught stealing from a tip jar. You think I don't know how many birthdays you skipped? I asked. How many times I was the one they called when your car broke down, when Kyle needed bail money, when Mom accidentally overdrafted her account for the third time that month. You all acted like I was just doing my duty, like it was natural for me to be the one picking up the pieces. But it was never about love. It was about convenience. You never saw me as a brother. You saw me as a resource. She stepped back, her face red now, not from the cold outside, but from embarrassment. Maybe even shame. I wasn't trying to humiliate her, but sometimes the truth does that all on its own. I'm not saying this to punish you, I added. I'm saying it because I'm setting a boundary. And for once, I'm not asking for your permission to do it. I walked to the hallway, pulled a $20 bill from the drawer near the front door, the same drawer where I used to keep spare house keys for family, because I always figured they might need a place to crash. I handed her the money not as a gift, not as pity, just as a simple gesture so she could get home without excuses. This is for gas, I said. That's all I can give you tonight. And next year? Figure it out yourselves. She took it without a word, her hands shaking just enough to let me know something inside her had shifted. Maybe not enough, but enough for now. Her kids were already bundled up again, standing by the door, their small faces pinched with confusion. They didn't understand what had happened, but they felt the tension like dogs feel a storm coming. I knelt down, hugged them both, and smiled the kind of smile you give children when you don't want them to inherit the damage. You guys have a safe trip home, I said softly. Take care of your mom. Lena mumbled a thank you, barely audible, and then they were gone back out into the snow, down the walkway, headlights cutting through the dark like slivers of doubt. I stood there at the door for a long time after they left, staring at the empty street, letting the silence settle in my bones. It didn't feel lonely. It felt honest. For once, I wasn't pretending that everything was okay. I wasn't patching holes in a sinking ship. I wasn't funding a lie. Back inside, the house was warm again. My kids were asleep upstairs, the soft hum of their breath grounding me in something real. Something earned. Something I didn't have to buy or beg for. Then my phone rang. I almost didn't answer. I was standing in the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of water, when I saw the name flash across the screen. Jean. No, Mom. Just Jean. I'd changed the contact a few nights ago, somewhere between the 100th insult and the silence that followed my refusal to keep playing Santa Claus. It was petty, maybe, but also necessary. I stared at the screen, letting it ring, listening to the sound echo through the quiet room. And then, without thinking, I picked up. "Mark," she said, not even waiting for me to speak. Her voice was calm this time. Too calm. The kind of calm that made my stomach tighten. "I think we need to talk," she said. And something in her tone told me this call wasn't going to be about forgiveness. It was going to be about control. One last attempt to pull the strings. And I was going to let her talk. But this time, she wouldn't be the one holding the scissors. The silence between the first ring and when I finally said hello stretched out like a tightrope across a canyon, one you know you have to walk, but you also know won't hold. I didn't brace myself. I didn't rehearse lines. I just stood there with the phone pressed to my ear and the weight of too many years sitting across my shoulders, heavier now that I had finally started to shake some of it loose. "Mark," she said, flat and clipped, like my name tasted bitter on her tongue. "So you've decided you're better than all of us now?" No greeting. No pause. No attempt at softness. Jean came in sharp and fast, like a woman who'd had a speech locked and loaded since the moment she saw my name at the top of her missed call list. And maybe in her world, that opening line was supposed to shame me into retreat, drag me back into line like the old days when a tone of voice and a heavy sigh could guilt me into submission. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I wasn't even the man she thought she knew last Christmas. "No," I said quietly, not defensive, just firm. "I just finally figured out I'm not your damn Christmas fund." That stopped her. For a beat, I could hear her breathing on the other end, short and tight like she'd swallowed a piece of something too big and bitter to go down easy. She wasn't used to being spoken to like that, especially not by me. Especially not with calm. Jean knew how to handle yelling. She knew how to spin rage into irresponsibility, how to twist frustration into selfishness. But this steady resolve? It was unfamiliar terrain. "Everything I did was for this family," she said, her voice rising, gaining that edge I knew too well. "I kept us together when your father died. I made sure no one went without. I sacrificed plenty, and so did I interrupted, still not raising my voice. "I sacrificed more than you ever noticed. Time. Money. Peace. I gave up holidays with my own kids to make sure you and Kyle and Lena and everyone else could feel like the world hadn't fallen apart. But it did, Mom. It did. And instead of trying to rebuild something real, we all just clung to tradition like it was a lifeboat." She scoffed at that, a dry, biting sound that told me she was about to pivot into martyr mode. "You think I wanted it this way?" she snapped. "You think I wanted to rely on you? You think I liked watching my son throw money at everything like that made it better?" "No," I said. "I think you liked not having to ask." That one hit her harder than she expected. I could hear it in the way the next silence didn't feel like power, it felt like defeat. "I did what I thought was right," she said, quieter now. "I tried to hold things together." "We all did," I replied. "But the difference is, you let me carry it because it was easier than admitting it was too heavy for everyone." There was no more shouting after that. No more defensive jabs. Just a long, aching silence between us, full of everything we'd never said and all the things we both knew were too late to fix. Then she hung up. No goodbye. No apology. Just the hollow click of a call ending, like a door being closed from the other side. And maybe that was all it needed to be. The house was still. The snow was still falling outside, thick and quiet, blanketing everything in that soft December hush that makes the world feel smaller and safer than it really is. Upstairs, the kids were getting ready for our own little version of Christmas Eve. No pressure. No performance. Just Coco in mismatched mugs, a worn couch, and Die Hard on the TV because Ben was convinced that was the only real holiday movie worth watching. I didn't argue. I just laughed and agreed and made the cocoa with extra whipped cream like Ellie liked it, even though she always ended up with more on her nose than in the cup. We watched Bruce Willis crawl through air vents and deliver one-liners while the fireplace crackled and the world outside faded away. It was the smallest Christmas I'd ever had and maybe the most honest. We didn't open gifts that night. There weren't any big boxes wrapped with shimmering bows or stockings stuffed with overpriced gadgets. There were just the three of us, sitting close, laughing at all the wrong parts of the movie, quoting lines we barely remembered, and letting the night be simple. And in that simplicity, I found something I hadn't felt in years. Not triumph. Not victory. Just peace. The kind that comes when you stop trying to fix people who don't want to be fixed. The kind that arrives quietly after a decade of noise. I thought that would be the end of it. But peace, like silence, never really lasts, not in families like mine. Somewhere around midnight, after the movie ended and Ellie drifted off on the couch, her head in my lap and Ben half asleep with his phone slipping from his hand, my phone buzzed on the counter. Just once. No ring. No call. Just a message. It was from Kyle. 3 words. Can we talk? I stared at the screen for a long time, the glow cutting through the dark like a needle through fabric, stitching uncertainty back into a night I thought I'd finally sealed shut. And for a moment, I didn't know what to feel. Was this the beginning of something new, something honest? Or was it just another attempt to reel me back in, to twist the screws, to reset the cycle? I didn't reply. Not yet. Because sometimes silence is the only answer that says everything.